Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking at a super fascinating urban design case study. We're going to dive into exactly how a scruffy, beloved, fiercely bohemian Tokyo neighborhood actually survived a massive urban redevelopment project. If you're into city planning, architecture, or just kind of wondering how local communities keep their unique vibe when modernization comes knocking, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get right into it. So picture this. You've got this vibrant, wonderfully messy indie neighborhood. And suddenly, the major railway that cuts right through the middle of it, it's moved entirely underground. That's exactly what went down in Shimokitazawa, and it left behind this massive 1-kilometer stretch of empty land right through the heart of town. Naturally, locals were terrified. The huge fear was that generic glass towers and cookie-cutter chain stores would swoop in, totally erasing that independent charm people actually travel there to experience. All right, let's talk about the Railway Street Project. Now, that worst-case scenario with the corporate skyscrapers, it didn't happen. Instead, developers went with a concept called the Senrogai, or Railway Street. Between 2019, when the railway was buried, all the way to 2022, they rolled out a staggered chain of really human-scale buildings. We're talking places like Bonus Track, Ariokion, Reload, and eventually Mikan Shimokita. It was this highly conscious effort to keep rents modest and actually nurture independent operators right along those old tracks, rather than just handing the whole shebang over to national mega brands. Now, does this approach actually work? Well, a debate is definitely still raging. Some longtime regulars look at these new blocks and think they're just a bit too clean, like a sanitized version of the scruffiness that made Shimokitazawa so special to begin with. But others see it as a vital shield, a genuinely rare redevelopment that protected the neighborhood's soul instead of paving over it. And honestly, both takes are kind of true at the same time. This crazy tension between the polished new boxes and the chaotic vintage alleys just a few steps away is exactly what makes the area so incredibly dynamic right now. Let's take a closer look at Bonus Track, the indie incubator. This was the first specific complex to open back in 2020, and it really shows how you can build a functioning community from scratch. Bonus Track is for sure the more experimental of the two main spots we're looking at today. It was purpose-built to lower the barrier to entry for new businesses. We're talking super small units, really modest rents, and, this is wild, actual shop houses where owners can live directly above their store. The whole idea is literally in the name. It's the bonus track on an album, that extra, slightly experimental cut beyond the mainstream hits. It acts like this low-key village, all tied together by an open plaza where they host weekend markets, pop-ups, and just leave room for dogs to flop in the sun. And the mix of tenants they've curated here is brilliant. The anchor is Bookshop B&B, which stands for Book and Beer. Basically, you can buy a novel, sip a craft beer or coffee, and catch one of their near-nightly talks. Then, right next door, you might find the Hako department, selling fermented deli goods, sitting right alongside tiny, owner-run joints serving up Southeast Asian plates or pouring natural wine. It feels deeply personal and highly communal. Food and Cafes writer Theo Nakagawa really hit the nail on the head here. He says you should come to Bonus Track hungry in the early evening. Because these places are small and owner-operated, it's just the perfect spot to eat incredibly well without dealing with the exhausting, long waits you'll usually find tucked away in the older, more crowded alleyways. It's accessible, it's delicious, and it feels distinctly local. Moving on to our next stop, Reload, with its design-forward boxes. Just a short walk away on the north side of the station sits the sharper, slightly more polished sibling. Reload opened up in 2021, and honestly, it is visually stunning. It's essentially this tiny town made of about 24 separate stacked white cube-like units. But instead of trapping you inside a stuffy indoor corridor like a standard mall, it uses these open stairways that run right between the buildings. The striking architecture is literally half the appeal here. It physically pulls you up and across the different levels, making the simple act of exploring the complex an absolute experience. And you'll notice the tenants here really reflect that architectural polish. The heavy focus is on considered design. You've got serious specialty coffee heavyweights like Ogawa Coffee Laboratory and Sidewalk Stand. There's a gorgeous design hotel called the Mustard Hotel, plus independent boutiques, a bespoke eyewear maker, and even a barber. Where the old lanes of Shimokitazawa are all about the thrill of the messy hunt, Reload is entirely about the curated edit. So let's quickly compare the two complexes. It really comes down to what mood fits your visit. If you're looking for a loose, experimental vibe to grab some natural wine, eat some great food, and just hang out in an open plaza, you head to Bonus Track. On the flip side, if you're wanting a slow, design-minded browse, striking modern architecture, and an absolutely elite cup of specialty coffee, Reload is your spot. They're basically different tools for different parts of your day. I absolutely love this take from vintage and shopping editor Elise Brandt. She suggests treating these new complexes as a palate cleanser, not necessarily the main event. You see, these clean, modern spaces don't erase the chaotic vintage alleys Shimokitazawa is famous for. They actually complement them. After you've spent an hour elbow-deep in crowded clothing racks, the open space and slower pace of a place like Reload gives you the exact architectural breathing room you need to recharge. Now, let's map out the perfect Shimokitazawa look. How do we put all this urban design theory into practice? Well, to truly get the neighborhood, you really have to experience both the polished and the scruffy sides. Here's how you do it. Start your morning with a brilliant coffee at Reload before the rest of the town even wakes up. Then, cut right into those messy, dense, old-town vintage lanes for your afternoon shopping. Finally, wrap up your day at Bonus Track for a super relaxed dinner and an evening craft beer at the B&B Bookshop. By using Reload and Bonus Track as the calm bookends to your day, you get this incredibly seamless, comprehensive experience. A few quick logistical tips before you head out. Because this whole path is built on an old railway line, it is wonderfully flat. It's incredibly walkable, totally stroller-friendly, and very dog-friendly. Also, while Japan is definitely getting more cashless these days, do yourself a favor and carry some physical yen. Those tiny owner-run bars that stay open late at Bonus Track, they might just require it. Which brings us right back to the ultimate question. Looking at the undeniable success of the Railway Street project, we really have to ask ourselves, can modern redevelopment actually save a neighborhood's soul? Or does it just inevitably create a beautiful, highly curated museum of what it used to be? It's a fascinating tension, and it's one that cities all over the world are grappling with right now. I'm going to leave you with that thought to ponder for the future of our urban spaces. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring